Lion Advocacy says depriving someone of legal counsel is a flagrant violation of basic human rights, charter rights, and international treaties. Bank freezes, debanking someone, summarily making it effectively impossible for them to retain or pay for a lawyer, is the new made in Canada workaround. If courts, law societies, and lawyer associations across the country don't speak out against this insidious practice and fast put a stop to it, Canada's vestiges of democracy will morph into some bizarre form of kleptocracy and autocracy. Right. And that's not good. That is the opposite of where we want to go. Where they're going is BMO has banking and inclusion policies. And here's the link to the banking and inclusion policies. And it says diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're committed to building a more just society, especially for groups facing systemic barriers, including our Black, Latino, and Indigenous colleagues, customers, and communities. BMO's Zero Barriers to Inclusion 2025, unless you said the wrong thing on the internet, is a multi-year strategy focused on providing access to opportunities and enabling growth both inside and outside our doors. It's part of our purpose-driven commitment to boldly grow the good in business and in life. Oh, but they get to define what's good, right? Like, oh man, that's bad, right? That's bad. Banking lockdown for non-compliant DEI bank customers, says Bill Tufts. No banking services, no business loans, no credit cards, no mortgages. Banks teamed up with AI investigative organizations that will track every comment you've ever made. Yikes, right? So, I mean, what are you going to do in the face of an AI who's heck bent on finding and minimizing the risk profile of people who may have said something gauche on Facebook in 2013, right? How dare you, sir, right? It was a joke in the office. What's happening, how this plays out in practice, and I got this from somebody, and this is the PPC, Riding Association and campaign were debanked just before the election. Pretty crazy, right? Pretty crazy. Here is part of this letter. I'm reaching out to address the reason as to why Helsum is not able to move forward with your account. I've never heard of this bank, by the way, so just fair warning. This is forwarded to me, and it's a copy of an email. So, and it's not a screenshotted copy; it's like a text copy. So again, internet, take it with a grain of salt. But I believe the source that I got this from, and I think that this kind of behavior is very, very concerning, right? Anyway, I'm reaching out to address the reason as to why Helsum is not able to move forward with your account. In adherence with our acceptable use policy, Helsum, I'm probably saying that wrong, Helsum, Helcim. I'm imagining a U. I don't know why, because my last name probably. Helsum, I'm still saying it wrong, Helsum. It's all wrong. Is unable to onboard businesses that offer goods, services, or account content that condones or promotes material that falls under our prohibited content, including actions that discriminate against any person or group. Based on previous comments on the public record, we have determined that Calgary PPC Heritage Riding Association violates our acceptable use policy, and as such, we will be unable to approve your account. In light of this, we are also going to be terminating your existing account, Calgary North PPC Association, as this falls outside of our acceptable use policy. We would like to extend 2 weeks as a grace period for you to be able to find a new processor, so the closure will be in effect as of July 10th, 2023. Wild. And so that is an attack on their ability to contract legal help or pay for services or anything like that, receive monies. There's all sorts of problems with that. There's all sorts of problems with being able to debank somebody because they fall outside of their risk profile, right? Our acceptable use policy. Our acceptable use policy is no homers, right? Like, no mark PAR, and you are marked PARA, and that falls under the unacceptable use policy. I know it's unbelievable. It sounds really, really specific, but here it is. So I mean, acceptable use policy. There you go. I mean, my hands are tied. Doesn't the charter have anything to say about that? You'd think that banking would be one of those situations, like a bank run was the response to Chrystia Freeland freezing bank accounts. So what would be the response when you find out that certain banks are freezing accounts for violating their acceptable use policy? how many people know that banks have an acceptable use policy? And I mean, like, you can't launder money. There are things that are illegal to do with money that I think everybody pretty well agrees with, right? Maybe not everybody, but most people pretty much agree with. So there are rules with regards to money. But if you say, I think that man over there's a man and not a woman, and they say, nice banking with you, sir. You are outside of our acceptable use policy. Sign here. You've got 2 weeks to find a new provider. Oh, and we've put a red spot, like we've put a red mark on your account file to let everybody else in the banking world know that you're a bigot. Whoa, hold on. What was that last part? Say that again. Nigel Farage is absolutely lighting this on fire in Britain, and he's asked for internal documents about him, and all the internal documents talk about Brexit, and it's a political witch hunt, right? And so what's the proper response? I think, and I'm not saying like bank run or anything like that, but when the public finds out about this, they generally get upset about this kind of stuff. And then when they don't trust the bank, what do? They decide to debank themselves. They take their money out of the untrustworthy bank institution, and they find a place that they are comfortable putting their money. Where will that be if all of the banks are bad, right? For lack of a better term. Illuminati Bot says the feds ran the UFO hearing in Congress on the same day they dropped the charges against the Democrat super donor Sam Bankman-Fried. This is what a total corruption looks like. Yeah, I mean, they're playing the media. This is what playing the media like a fiddle looks like. Look over there, aliens, while we do Sam Bankman-Fried and Hunter Biden. Right? Like, you're not paying attention. People aren't paying attention. That's the point, right? Here's Sam Ilkin. All campaign finance charges dropped against the Fried Bankman SFB by the Department of Justice. Today would have happened to anyone, right? Or totally would have happened to anyone, right? There's no two-tier justice system, you conspiracy theorist. Right. Hunter Biden, Sam Bankman-Fried, nothing to see here, guys. Actually, the Hunter Biden thing is very funny because his plea deal blew up, right? And didn't happen. But this is interesting. People were harmed by this. Where's all of the money? Right? All of the money that all of the friendly donors and the friends of friends and the friends of, who was it? The Tom Brady and his wife and all of the people in the commercial, right? These were high profile people. Where's all that money? Aren't they upset? Right? Did you just get that back from Democrat donations? I don't know, man. So there's a whole lot of very, very shady things going on pretty much everywhere, not just Canada, not just the UK with Nigel Farage, not just the United States and the Bahamas with Sam Bankman-Fried, Hunter Biden, and the rest of all of it. Everywhere seems like, wow, there's really, really obviously something else going on here, right? Let's talk about inflation more at home, because like that's kind of a worldwide thing that's happening. Debanking, everybody's talking about that, which is, I mean, it's super interesting and terrible. Like not something that I had on my, something that you may have had on your bingo card, but not something I had on my radar as a massive threat until Chrystia Freeland started pulling it out for the Freedom Convoy people. And now, who needs an emergency? You just debank them because we don't like them, right? Outside of the acceptable use policies, you see. But closer to home, what's happening here and with money here. And it feels like we're being driven to a point of bankruptcy to drive us to do something. Right? And when you get to that point of bankruptcy and you'll say, I'll do anything to maintain my standard of living, tell me what to do. And somebody comes in and says, here's your central bank digital currency. Right? People will jump. People will say, this is so convenient. I'm glad. I don't know why they didn't just introduce it earlier. It's so great. Ron says, fixed rate mortgages going up. All bond yields have hit multi-year records today. All banks and other lenders will raise rates today, tomorrow, and next week. Some non-discount rates in 1 year and 2 year rates will move into the low 7% range and qualifying over 9%. This is bad news because people can't buy the houses at the prices they're at. So it's going to cause the prices to come down, but the value is still there and the supply and demand is still there. And in reality, like 7%, 5% was supposed to cause the prices to come down, right? 5.5%, and we're not seeing any slow. And yesterday, the 27th at 10:43 a.m., Globe and Mail posted this: Bloor West house sells for $500,001 over asking. Wow, that's wild, right? Like $500,000 over asking price. So you've got a standalone home in downtown Toronto, Bloor West, and going $500,000 over asking, but at the same time, you've got interest rates ticking up because the economy's too hot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The bond yields are hitting records. And so at this point in time, man, we've got to raise rates, right? Canadians are being punished because the fiscal mismanagement in the federal government is punishing us with high rates and inflation, right? And it's terrible. These people are damaging things. I don't think they could do any more damage, even if they were trying. Like, I think, man, knock wood, right? Like, let's not give them any ideas. It seems like, I don't think they could do any more damage, even if they tried. Economic Woes says, yeah, the bottom is definitely in. Welcome to Canada, right? And he's got rocket ships lifting off. This is an opinion piece published yesterday. According to the screenshot, it says, parents, have you thought of selling half of your home to your adult kids and then sharing the space? Now, listen, I'm a huge advocate. Honestly, hand to God, I think that living with your parents is a benefit. You have to have your own space, but I think it's a benefit. I have been doing it for a long time, and it's great. Like, I lived on my own. I bought a house when I was 19. So I bought a house very early, and I've told that story before. I think I was making $45,000 a year, which was fine, like 2002 or something like that. The house cost $118,000. I got a little bit of help to buy it because closing costs were something that I did not realize existed. So my parents said, you need this money. And I said, oh, that's a problem. So, I mean, like, it wasn't such a problem. I had resources and was able to get the money, but on closing day, it was one of those things where my parents were giving me cut eye over it. And I thought, sorry, everyone, had no idea, right? So, like, oh, well. But at that time, with that much money, it was a little tight, I'll be honest with you, but my rent went down, right? So that's wild. Like, my mortgage was cheaper than my rent, but I didn't factor the taxes in when I calculated that. But still, even with the taxes in, I think it was still like $10 cheaper, but it wasn't nearly the savings that I'd hoped it was going to be. Anyways, regardless of all of that, I bought a house with $45,000, and my parents helped me out with that and lived on my own for a long time before moving in. And the whole plan was to basically future-proof my parents and aging, right? Like, as you get older, you realize your parents are getting older and you have to deal with that. That's your responsibility. Just like they took care of you when you were a kid and they didn't ask anything of you for it other than, just to be a reasonable kid. You have to take care of your parents as they age because it's kind of returning the favor. It's the yin and the yang, right? Like, it's the other side of the agreement, right? So that was the reason that I did that. But fundamentally, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a good idea, but I don't think you should do it for economic reasons. I don't think partially though, because part of the reason that I did it was because I thought, why are they paying for a television subscription? And we're paying for a television subscription, whereas if we had one house, we could all just pay for one television subscription and cut the bills in half. And there could be an apartment, everybody could be in different spaces, blah, 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 blah. But it was one of those things where I was sold on the idea right away, and I did the selling to other people. But I think it's a good idea for family planning. I think it's a terrible idea that fiscal levers have been used to push Canadians to this idea, right? Like, if you want to live on your own and you want to have a house on your own and you don't want to live with your parents because you clash with your parents or something like that, you should be able to do that. You shouldn't be looking at the finances and going, oh my gosh, we can't afford this. Let's move in with my parents. That's not good. That's bad. That is a step backward for Canada. And that's bad. That's a bad indication. So I'm not advocating for that. And I'm not saying that, yay, we should do that. I'm just saying that it's actually a good idea and it's not as bad as you think. So anyway, regardless, I think the fiscal signal, the economic signal this sends is terrible, but the idea is sound. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful